Russia is a country you don't hear much about when it comes to baseball. Though it's easy to imagine the swing of a bat replacing the swing of a hockey stick for the summer months, there are a lot of reasons why the country never embraced baseball in the past. But there are also many reasons why the sport could be a big hit in the near future. The first unofficial introduction of baseball on Russian soil came in the 1930s when people from the United States immigrated to the Soviet Union, a country they had been told was enjoying good times while the Great Depression was going on. Baseball never got organized at this time, and along with any other American influence they brought with them, it was prohibited. Just like in China and several Eastern European countries, from the 1930s till the early part of the 1980s, communist states had no tolerance for a game that was considered a symbol of American capitalism, Cuba being the exception, of course. But that all changed in 1986 when the IOC voted to make baseball an Olympic sport. Baseball's inclusion not only meant that it was allowed to be played, but it got a lot of government support, as Olympic sports were taken very seriously by the Soviet government. Not only that, the Soviet government saw success in baseball as especially important. After beating the US in both hockey and basketball, beating them in baseball, the ultimate American sport as they viewed it, would be a huge symbolic victory. Coaches from Cuba and later the US were brought in to train Russian athletes. These athletes included boxers, javelin throwers, and other track and field stars, ice skaters, and hockey players, all hoping to convert their athletic skills for this new Olympic sport. A national league of 30 teams was created, quite a big league considering that baseball was just being born in the country, and soon the best players were chosen for the country's first national baseball team. Before the end of 1987, they played in their first international competition in Ukraine, losing to Nicaragua 22-0. One team that traveled there from Moscow said they played in rugby vests and fencing pants. In 1989, a group of players from the AA Eastern League went on a 16-day tour of the Soviet Union, putting on clinics and playing against this new national team. Jeff Bannister, who later became an MLB player and manager, was among the players in this group. There was no shortage of athleticism on the Soviet team, but skill was lacking. They failed to get a hit in the first few games they played against the US AA team, so it was then decided to have teams of mixed Soviet and American players. Later that year it went in the other direction as the Soviet team made an historic trip to the US. The tour was a success. In games against 6 different US teams, the Soviets came out on top twice. Before heading back to the USSR, they paid a visit to the White House where they got to meet then US President Ronald Reagan, as well as future President George W. Bush. They spent 1990 and 91 competing against European countries like Italy, France, Switzerland, Great Britain, and Belgium, and they fielded teams for the 1990 Goodwill Games and the 1991 European Championships. Not long before baseball made its official Olympic debut at the 1992 Summer Games in Barcelona came the breakup of the Soviet Union. You might think that would be a good thing considering the traditional communist view of baseball in that part of the world, but this meant that the ambitious 30-team National League that had been created was now broken up into several independent states. In some of these new countries, the baseball program died and has yet to be revived even today, but in Russia the sport carried on. Throughout the 90s they competed in the European Baseball Championship, placing 6th in 91, 8th in 93 and 95, 4th in 97 and 99. In 2001 they had their greatest success, finishing runner-up to the Netherlands, but since then they haven't finished higher than 8th. When baseball was voted out of the Olympics, Russian baseball lost its government funding, and enthusiasm for the sport died out. But as you all know, baseball is returning for this summer's Olympic Games, and most certainly will be back in 2028, possibly becoming a permanent Olympic event once again after that. So, like in many other countries, enthusiasm for baseball in Russia has returned, even if on a smaller scale. They're no longer trying to convert athletes from other sports, hoping to win an Olympic medal in the next 10 years. They're thinking more long-term now. At sports academies, kids are being trained in baseball as young as 6 years old. Coaches are visiting elementary schools and teaching children about it. Through the internet, parents are learning about the sport and encouraging their kids to give it a try. Unlike in the Soviet era, young athletes can travel abroad to get better training. Teams from Russia face more international competition. Last year, the Russian national team participated in and won Prague Baseball Week, the only international baseball event held in Europe in 2020, beating the Czech national team in the finals. There is a 20-team amateur league playing in and around Moscow. Last year they played a short season with just 8 teams, and all games were played at Russtar Arena, one of the world's newest baseball stadiums, opened in May of 2019. This is also the home field for the Russian national team. The champion of this league is called the Russian National Champion, even though there are other amateur leagues in the country. Another event taking place shortly after that is the Russian Baseball Cup. and that involves teams from all across Russia. The Russian national baseball team is presently ranked 28th in the world, so they could very likely appear in the WBC qualifiers in the near future. Head coach is Vladimir Timokov. One of his assistants is Viktor Kol. Kol was born in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, but lived in the U.S. from the age of 4. He played briefly for the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1992, later for the Doosan Bears of the KBO, and the Russian national team. He was the 9th and final Russian-born player to appear in MLB. None of those 9 Russian-born players grew up there. But probably the greatest Russian-born player ever was Viktor Starfin. Born in the Ural Mountain region, he escaped with his family after the overthrow of the Tsar, eventually settling in Japan. There he grew up playing baseball, a new sport to the Japanese at the time, and ended up becoming one of the original members of the Yomiuri Giants, and a dominant pitcher in the earliest days of Japanese professional baseball. The first player to grow up in Russia and play in MLB or NPB could happen a lot sooner than you think. A number of Russians have already played in the minors. A good recent prospect is 22-year-old Moscow-born relief pitcher Anton Kuznetsov of the Philadelphia Phillies organization. He last appeared at Single-A Williamsport in 2019, where he posted a 1.91 ERA in 17 relief appearances. Russia has been able to put players in the minors and achieve a number 28 world ranking, even though they didn't start reaching out to young athletes until recently. This shows you how much potential the country has, if they continue with player development and growth of the sport within the country. One thing that would really help would be to spread the game out more. Right now, most of the country's baseball activity occurs in and around Moscow. Creating a national league involving cities throughout the country would be great, but it's too much to ask. Distance is a problem in any country where baseball is just getting off the ground, and Russia is so unbelievably huge, they'll have to settle for separate regional leagues. One city that it seems would be great for baseball is Vladivostok, located on the Pacific coast. Far from Moscow, but just a short flight away from Japan and Korea. There are so many possibilities if you can get players and teams traveling back and forth between Vladivostok and those two countries. Weather is one obstacle for baseball in Russia. The country is known for its long, harsh winters, and baseball is one of the hardest games to play indoors. That's where Baseball 5 could be useful. This new variant of the sport can easily be adapted for indoor play, and it would be good for maintaining players' fielding skills during the winter months. But I think they know this already. At the first European Baseball 5 Championship in February of 2020, the Russian team earned the bronze medal and was named the best defensive team of the tournament. There is a traditional bat and ball game in Russia that is similar to baseball in some ways. Lapta, a game dating back to the 14th century, was a very popular sport in Tsarist Russia, especially among soldiers. But in modern Russia, it's hardly known. So when Russian athletes are introduced to baseball, it's most likely the first bat and ball sport they've come in contact with. There's an official Rustar Arena Moscow YouTube channel that I'll link in the description. There you can watch entire games from the Russian Championship and the Russian Cup. And click in the upper right hand corner of your screen to see a video I made a couple years ago about Viktor Starfin. The story of his life is one of the most fascinating stories I've ever learned about. Anyway, that's all for this one. Until next time, this is Baseball International. See ya.